We're standing on the border of New South Wales and Victoria on the glorious Snowy River. It's the start of a big high country adventure for us. We've got Ron Moon here. He's set out a good route for us to follow along. Ron, where are you taking us?
Well, right from here, we're going up and pick up the Injigubbi track, which will take us up to the McFarlane Flat and then across to the Davies High Plains. It's one of the great spots of the high country. You know, I've been lucky enough in the last 40 or so years to travel a hell of a lot of places in Australia. But this country west of here to Mansfield, about 300, 400 k's, you can't get better camping, more challenging four-wheel drive tracks or more spectacular scenery. What are we waiting for?
Should be a lot of fun, mate. We've got a great crew of guys here, some fantastic cars. Let's go and have a look.
Yeah, my word. From the Snowy River at Willis, we'll be heading west through McFarlane's Flat and the Davies High Plains across to Gibson's and Wheeler's Hut, before finding our way to Kennedy and Wombat PO Hut. Passing through Omeo, we'll head to Dog's Grave and its nearby hut, before pushing on to Dargo and then north to Lanky Plain. Our route then will take us through the Wonnangatta, up onto the Howard High Plains and onwards to Lubbocks and Bluff Hut, to probably the most famous hut in the high country, Craig's Hut.
Ron, you notice as soon as we cross the border here into Victoria, it's all gone grey and gloomy. And looking up that hill up there, it's pretty black. Is that where we're headed?
Yeah, mate, it just makes it a bit more exciting, that's all. But it's a great drive along here, along this, well, I think it's the Barry Way they call it, isn't it, along the Snowy River, and some good camping, and just a fantastic way for New South Wales people or people from further north to come into the Victorian High Country.
Yeah, well, that Injigubbi track where we're heading up, that's pretty steep.
I think that's an understatement, mate. It does get pretty steep.
Well, according to the Hemi on the dashboard here, we should be coming up on that pretty soon.
Yeah, mate, it's not too far away, so we'll head up the Injigubbi and we'll get to McFarlane Flat, and there's a couple of ruins of some old huts there, and then we'll pick up a few more huts as we head deeper into the high country. I mean, there's lots of huts, so we'll get to see a few on the way. Our track is taking us through some of the most rugged country in the Victorian Alps, from the lowlands of the Snowy River Valley to the snow plains around McFarlane's Hut, the first of the historic sites we'll visit on this trip. The cattlemen's huts that sprang up across our high country were just the first. Miners and foresters followed, building huts for essentially the same reason, as a shelter and a respite from the harsh weather these mountains can dish out. With us on this trip is Lee from Mark's 4-wheel drive in his well set up cruiser, and Craig from Lightforce in his Hilux. Looking after us as the cab cook and general roustabout is GT in the MSA Hilux. There's not much left here. This is all that remains of McFarlane Flat Hut. It was built by Buff Rogers and his family in about 1980, so it's not particularly old. Got burnt down in the 2003 fires. They used to have the grazing lease up here, grazing their cattle through these snow plains. They've lost that though. Interestingly enough, just up here, there's a little pile of rocks. It's all that remains of the first hut built here in 1834 by James McFarlane. Some say it's the first European building in Victoria. Anyway, not much to see here. Lots of other better huts. Let's go and have a look at them. We just came in off the Injigubbi track, got onto this Limestone Creek Road, and we're at Native Dog Flat. Beautiful spot to camp if you ever want to camp up this way. But this shows our route. We're going to go on the Limestone Creek track, into the Poplars on the Murray, and then up through Charlie Creek Campground over to the Davies High Plains. Beautiful spot. One of my favourite areas in all of Australia. Just fantastic. And then we'll drop down to the Murray again at Tom Grogan. We've just come across this tree, half down across the track. We can't get past it, so we've just got to clear it. Chainsaw's the easiest way. This is a problem up here in the high country. You've got to be prepared. Our route took us high along a ridgeline, crowded with snow gums, many still standing after being ravaged by the 2003 fires, while others are rich regrowth, testimony to the resilience of the scrub and the country. This is one of my favourite areas in all of Australia, the Davies High Plains in the middle of the Victorian High Country. It is an absolutely fantastic place, pretty hard to get to, but extremely popular with a lot of people. And the centrepiece of this area is this old hut. Built in 1939, after the big bushfires then, was in use by cattlemen up until 2002. In fact, I came up here with the last mob of cattle in 2002, and then in 2003, the big fires went through this area. And luckily, by sheer arse, this hut survived. Let's have a look at it. The first hut was built on these snow plains in about 1895 by the Gibson family. It got rejuvenated in about 1996, I think, because it was starting to feel a bit sad. But you can still see, fairly traditional methods of building these huts. Wire braces to tie it all together, bit of mud putty to stop the wind, which can whistle through here like all crazy. The original hut would have had timber roof, but that's fairly, that helps them burn even quicker than normal. So this one's got some old galvanised iron. I just love it. Some of the comments in here. I'm not the only crazy one who loves these mountain cattlemen's huts. Amazing, great place, epic. Yeah, people really appreciate these places. I mean, they're built for shelter and for emergency survival, but today they're really part of our heritage. Looked after by the Victorian High Country Huts Association. They do a fantastic job. I need time to process this place. I love it. Our route north was thwarted by a closed track, so after a lengthy detour we came down into the Murray River Valley at Dogman's Hut. This is no mountain cattleman hut. In fact, it was built by the Pastoral Board in about 1959-1960 for the use of doggers who are up here trapping wild dogs. Wild dogs are still an issue in the high country, but that's another story. Today, the hut sits on the edge of Tom Grogan Station's freehold land and the Alpine Park, and the Murray River is just 50 metres away. Beautiful. Nice spot, very popular with travellers. We're on top of Mount Pinnabar, nearly 1,800 metres above sea level, and we got a 360-degree panorama around us. Over here is the Kosciuszko main range with Mount Kosciuszko. Fantastic sweep of mountains all the way south and across to the west, where we've got the Howard High Plains and Mount Howard. We're going to drop off this ridge, sad to leave it, but there you go, and drop down this hill to Wheelers Creek. The sudden descent from Mount Pinnabar takes you from the harsh, stunted vegetation of small snow plains that cover this rocky, exposed peak, through snow gums and to magnificent forests of peppermint and alpine ash. The Gibsons first came to this area in the late 1890s, grazing their cattle through these high forests and up onto Mount Pinnabar and Mount Gibbo. The family built a number of huts through their country, including this one, which is the second hut to occupy this delightful site. That is magic. A beautiful little stream running crystal clear and freezing cold. Beautiful spot to fill up the water bottle in this forest of grey gums and messmate and alpine ash, and along the creek a lot of tree, still in flower too. But what makes this place so unique is this little hut up here. It's a beauty. It was built by the Gibson family in about 1895 when they took up their cattle lease, and refurbished by the forestry department in about 1991. Today it's really popular with bushwalkers and hunters and four-wheel drivers. It's nice and cosy on a cold, cold night, I can tell you. Let's go inside and have a look. Welcome to Willis Hut. It's a cracker of a hut in a delightful location. The creek's just down here, got some beautiful camping spots along the creek, and then you got this hut, built in 1976 by the Forestry Commission, and a few of the boys got together and built out of a couple of old huts this large roomy hut which has got a slow combustion stove and a couple of bunks. It's a beauty.
Among the myriad of lighting products you can get for your four-wheel drive, light bars are still really popular, and Light Forces come to the party on those as well. We've fitted one to our long-term Patrol out the back here. Craig, tell us a bit about Light Forces light bars.
Okay, so we've got a wide range of light bars available. We do from 6 inch right up to 50 inches wide, and they're available all in slimline, single row or double row format. So depending on what sort of light you want and what performance, we've got plenty of options to suit you.
So we've got the 40-inch single row on the Patrol up there. Seems to be working really well when we've come into camp late at night.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 40-inch, that gets you absolutely phenomenal performance. It is as good as a set of driving lights in some respects. So sometimes you don't need that driving light, round light on the front. Sometimes a light bar is going to perform all you need it to.
That's where the LED technology has changed over the years. It used to be just a broad beam and you had to have a set of spotties as well. That's changed now. The light bars are shooting up the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've designed these to be more of an all-round driving light as opposed to just an upfront flood of light. So you will get that distance combined with the spread as well. And the colour is phenomenal.
Yeah, I really noticed that too. You don't get that bounce back off the road signs.
Yeah, so we've tried really hard to get the right colour of light for all situations, rather than that bright blue glaring white light that can be really, really distracting and off-putting.
Seems Light Force has got lights for no matter what you want.
Absolutely, that is our business.
Good stuff. So Ron, the tracks are a bit different over here, more wide country and some massive trees. This is obviously forestry land and not national parks where we were before.
Yeah, that's certainly the track's a beauty, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good road, this Willis Creek Road, but yeah, it's a logging road, well used by logging trucks, which people have got to look out for when they're up in this country. Logging operations still go on.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be confronted by one of those trucks coming down this hill.
I mean, the road's pretty good, but it ain't that wide.
No, I don't want to be falling off the side of that.
So we're heading to the Mitter River today. That's a nice little spot, beautiful stream, and we're going to get to it above Dartmouth Dam, where it's still running wild and free at a place called Taylor's Crossing. Hopefully do a bit of fishing there and check out another hut which is just downstream from there. Beautiful spot to camp.
Yeah, I was talking to Mick yesterday. He said he's coming up from Melbourne. He said he'll meet us up there to do some fishing if his disco will get there.
Ah, excellent. I need somebody with a lot more skill than me, mate, that's for sure.
While we love four-wheel driving up in the Victorian High Country, there are plenty of other things people love to do. Bushwalking is very popular, and where we are here on the Mitter River at Taylor's Crossing, The Great Australian Walking Trail passes through. It's 650 k's of bushwalking, some of the wildest country you can imagine. So yeah, pretty hardcore bushwalking. But there's also horseback riding, mountain bike riding, camping. There's so many things to do up in the high country. One of the things that's very popular up here is fishing. We've caught up with our old mate Mick Hurren. He's been doing a bit of fly fishing up here. Here you go, Mick.
Very good, Matt.
So Mick, tell us about it. What's fly fishing like up here in the high country?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. There's plenty of fish. We had a bit of a fish last night. We got about probably 20 fish at least.
Someone like yourself is into it more for the sport. You're not catching the fish to eat. The little fish are just as good, aren't they?
Yeah, I like to put them back. Yeah, little fish are fun. But because we're close to the dam here, you'll get the occasional big fish.
Obviously the trout is what you're after, but what else do people catch up here?
There's Macquarie perch, but I think they're protected. So if you catch one of those, put it back. Yeah, it's just mostly trout, brown and rainbow trout.
So mate, for someone who hasn't been fly fishing before, it looks pretty technical with all the waving it around and stuff like that. What's involved?
You got to learn how to cast. That's probably the hardest bit. And then it's learning where the fish are. They tend to sit behind rocks. They'll sit on the seams in the current, so you'll get some fast current and some slow current, and they'll sit on the edge of the slow current. You know, we're using grasshopper fly. There's plenty of grasshoppers around. And a nymph, which is an aquatic insect. You just got to float it dead drift, no drag. If you do that, you'll catch fish all day.
You make it sound easy.
Yeah, and you always walk upstream. That's a secret too. The fish face upstream, so if you go downstream, they'll hear you coming.
All right, mate, we'll let you get back out there.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Mick. We're just packing up our camp here at Taylor's Crossing on the Middle River, and it's part of the Great Alpine Walking Trail. And John's walked in. He's on his way down from up there all the way to Canberra is the long way up there. 650 k's in all up. Mate, how's the walk been?
Oh, yes, it's very hard for me. The
Yeah?
first day, probably around 20 k's.
How do you go about food? You got all your food in your backpack?
Yeah, I take the 10 days
Yep.
food, and probably I get more food from the mountain.
And you're doing the whole walk on your own? Just
Yes,
totally
I
solo?
will. I will.
Very good, mate. Well, good luck with the walk and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Less than 2 kilometres downstream from Taylor's Crossing and reached by a reasonable four-wheel drive track is another favourite hut of ours.
When the Kennedy family took up the grazing lease in this forest area in the 1960s, they built this hut in an absolute prime location on the Midda River. It's absolutely magic.
Our route took us up the eroded JP Gap track to a hut hidden amongst the steep-sided valleys that crowd the Midda River and the man-made Dartmouth Dam.
This is a disappointment. This is Wombat Post Office hut, tucked into this valley, this steep-sided valley, not far from the Midda River. But as you can see, this big tree has come down and nearly wiped it out completely. It was built back in the 1960s by the Kennedys, but there's been a hut on this site ever since the 1890s when there was a small village here looking after the miners that were working here.
We took a series of back roads and four-wheel drive tracks across the ranges to the iconic Dog's Grave and its nearby hut, which can be found just off the Birragun Road between Omeo and Dargo. And the weather was starting to change for the worst.
Isn't this a fabulous monument to man's best friend? Boney died here about 1863 and somebody erected this monument to him. It's an absolute ripper. You know, the weather's changing as it does in the high country, and there's a great little hut up here where I'm going to find some shelter. Just made it to this hut in time. The rain's starting to come down. Sunny 1 minute, rainy the next in the high country. This is probably the newest hut in the high country. It's only been built about 18 months ago. It replaced another hut built by the ADA, the Australian Deer Association. Lots of deer around here. And it's quite a comfy hut. Sadly, a fair bit of graffiti on the walls inside. I'm not too sure what motivates people, but anyway, there you go. Nice cosy hut for when the weather's like this. Well, that was different. 1 minute we were throwing up clouds of dust. Now we're just covering the vehicles in mud.
That rainstorm came through really quick and really heavy. Mud everywhere and a lot slipperier. You know, this is a part-time four-wheel drive, so I always slip the vehicle into four-wheel drive in those situations. Gives you a lot more control, makes it a lot safer. Switch on your headlights. As we came over the crest of that mountain, the fog just swirled in around us. 1 minute we had good visibility. Next, you only could see 50 metres if you were lucky. So you need your lights on just in case. Slow down and take it easy. North of Dargo, we found amongst the mist Lanky Plain Hut, which stands on the edge of the Dargo snow plain, south of the modern resort of Hotham Heights. This is Lanky Plain Hut, built by the Treasure family, one of the famous mountain cattlemen family of Victoria, in about 1951. It's been knocked around a bit by the weather, but the Victorian High Country Huts Association is doing it up and putting in a potbelly stove, which on a day like today, with this mist rolling through, it is quite cold. It'll be a nice warm shelter to come home to. A famous mountain cattleman family with a long heritage in these mountains, the Treasures are like the Lubbocks and the Stoneys, who run their cattle further west on the peaks of the bluff. Earlier today, we passed Lubbocks Hut on our way down from King Billy. We've met up with Charlie Lubbock, famous cattleman from the Merrijig area. Charlie, tell us a little bit about the hut and when you built it.
Lubbocks Hut on the and on Barclays Flat, as it's known, has been my family's high country home since 1960. It was built in 1960 by my father and friends as a refuge for cold winter months when we're out here mustering the cattle. If the snow came early, that was your refuge.
Okay, so you used to bring your cattle up from the lowlands sort of thing, up to these high plains?
Traditionally, for 3 months of the year, our cattle would come up from the lowlands and graze in the alpine meadows in the springtime. And until the fire season had passed, and then we'd take them home again.
And then later on you ran horse trail rides from there?
Yeah, and it was our domain. The family had spent generations of life out here in the high country, had a passion for it, a love for it, and it was a financial decision to actually bring people out here for them to pay us money to show them the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, well it is.
And it worked, and we loved it, and we still love it today.
Yeah.
The reason my father built the hut there was on Barclays Flat. You probably know, well you would know the story of James Barclay, the murdered manager of the station. That was where he built his outstation hut, there on Barclays Flat, hence the name Barclays.
Okay.
And my old man used to always say, if there's one spot to build a hut in the bush, it'd be where James Barclay built his. Very well protected from the weather.
Okay.
And so that's the claim to fame.
Okay, and it's linked back to the Wonnangata.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
As everything in those days was,
There's a lot of heritage and history here, and you've been linked to this country for a long time. How do you feel about the hut and you know, modern travellers and all that sort of? It must make you pretty proud that people like coming up here and seeing these places.
I've always felt, as all my forebears did, that they were custodians of this area and had a great passion for it, a great love for it, and a great respect of it. That still goes on today, and we've always been inclusive of other travellers going through, and it gives me no greater pleasure to be at that hut and walkers or four-wheel drivers or horse riders come through and they'll stop in, I'll introduce myself and tell them the history of the hut, and it gives me a great pleasure, so I'm passing my knowledge on. And I just have a warmth for the whole thing. I always say, Ron, that I am of this country. You can't be here for generations and not have a great love and respect for it.
No, my word, mate. I feel the same way, and I'm an occasional visitor, but I come from the bush, and I know how you feel.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because you've got to remember, this country it's not owned by successive governments. It's not owned by Parks Victoria. It's owned by you, the public. It's your country.
A beautiful part of the world it is too. We're at Bluff Hut. I've been coming here for over 30 odd years. It's one of my favourite huts. And Graeme Stoney has had an awful lot to do with this hut. Graeme, tell me the story of you and Bluff Hut.
Bluff Hut goes back to 1956. When I was 15, my old man said in the Christmas holidays, well, you and your mate are going to cart all the materials up to the Bluff Hut from Biddenaree, because that's as far as the Jeep track would go.
Oh, okay.
So I was 15 and, pretty young, and it was a big job, but we carted all the materials on pack horses up the steep side of the bluff and left them here for the hut to be built.
Your cattle lease was up here as well?
Yes, yeah, we ran 300 cattle up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, over how many acres?
10 miles by 2 miles.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
They just range out across all this country.
Yeah, rightio. You went on into the tourist business, didn't you? And you were highly acclaimed for that. I can remember the Sierra Club of America voted you one of the top 10 wilderness destinations in the world.
Yes, they did. Yeah, we started backcountry, cross-country skiing here.
Yep.
We got a permission to have a skidoo.
Yep.
And we camped people here at the Bluff Hut and took them out and taught them about backcountry skiing. We had two people helping us, Jock Dyson and John Brewster, who really knew their stuff.
Yep.
And we ran it for more than 10 years. Yeah. It was terrific.
That first hut got burnt down in the 2003 fires. It must have been devastating for you to feel how you felt like when that happened.
Well, we put everything into that hut. It was a refuge. It was our mustering hut. It saved, documented at least 3 lives.
Yep.
This hut, and when it got burnt down, we were devastated. And at that time, we had lost our runs the year before, and there was a lot of grass here, and the fire just came and just took the lot.
Yep.
So we decided, as a matter of principle, to rebuild it, and we some sponsors popped their heads up, including ARB, and Silcart, and David Muir, and we found enough money to rebuild the hut. My son David led the building construction group, and we put it back.
Okay, and that's what you see today.
That's what you see today.
Well, I think it's here for a long, long time, mate. You've done a great job again, building this famous hut.
We're very proud of it. Ron.
Yeah, so you should be, mate. It's fantastic. Thanks very much, mate.
Not at all.
We've been lucky enough to catch up with 2 legendary mountain cattlemen. Tell us about your time as master of horse with the Man from Snowy River movies.
Well, if you go back to that movie, Ron, it says that all the tried and noted riders from the stations near and far had gathered to the homestead overnight. Yeah. Well, it was basically put on my family to select those riders.
Okay. Did Stoney get a look in or not?
Yes, he was on the cutting edge there for a while. But no, and so all those tried and noted riders that we could muster were brought in.
Okay.
And it was a dill like me as a young fella that tried to marshal them and organise them.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. To get them to do what the camera wanted to see.
Okay.
I was one of those silly buggers that thought he knew what the camera wanted to see. So I had to try and convince these unruly ruffians to do what the camera wanted to see, not what they wanted to do.
Okay.
So that was a job in itself.
Yeah.
But in the end, we got the job done.
Yeah. We got the
but
job
I would
done.
have to say that to get those tried and noted riders from all over the Great Divide to ride together, we'd never done it before. We'd never had the opportunity to ride together.
Yeah, well, independent souls as well, tried to get them to...
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
We just went for it.
And as I said today, there was nobody from Mansfield that wanted to let somebody from Omeo boot them down the hill. So it was very competitive.
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was
and we've never looked back.
No.
Tell us about the fishing episode.
Here we go.
Well, I'll start, right? About 1967, Charlie and I were sent out as young blokes to do the mop-up, which is, there've been 2 musters. You blokes get up there and just check out for stragglers.
Okay.
And it was June, and
Well, fairly late in the season then.
Drought year, cold, what have you. We came up here together.
I was only 17 at the time.
And like Charlie had to ride 15 miles to the end of his run, and I had to go a bit closer. And we just camped here. Charlie headed off, and I was on Playboy, which is one of Lubbocks' best horses. And I got out to the long spur, which is about out towards where Lubbocks Hut is now.
Okay.
And I went down the long spur, and I got right down to the bottom because we had to do the extremes. And I could hear the river, so I thought I'd just go down and have a look. So I tied the horse up, walked down. Here's a fish jammed in a bit of a small pool. I got a rock, dropped it where he could get out to the bigger pool, got in and wrestled him and put him on a stick and brought him back to the hut. And he was a big fish. I was holding him up like this and his tail was on the ground, sort of.
How big?
Oh, quite big. Big trout. A big cannibal, actually, with the jaw.
Oh, the big teeth.
Yeah. And got back about 4 o'clock.
And the fish too.
And the fish too. Got back about 4:30. It was winter time, nearly dark. So I thought I'll just hang this thing up in front of the double doors here in the hut. You see, and I've got the fire going, but I didn't put the light on. And then Charlie arrives, takes a later because he had further to go, and
I mustered more thoroughly.
Didn't find any cattle though. And he
which
walked in the door.
Which meant the country was clean.
It was clean. And Charlie walks into the door and walks straight into the fish because I'd hung it up in the dark. He said, "Where'd you get this bastard? I've been out mustering all day and you've been out fishing."
Exactly right. Yeah.
So we cut the head off the fish and ate the fish.
Yeah, my
and
word.
I took the head home and I had it for years. It was a big fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I will tell you, Ron, I smelled a bit of a rat. And I've been out busting my guts all day by myself. And I thought, Stoney, he's gone straight down bloody Can Creek and gone fishing. So I went out and checked his saddlebag. His lunch was still in it, uneaten. So he'd been back here all day.
Not quite true.
Thanks very much for
Ron.
your
And
words.
Ron,
Thank you.
Ron, you're also a legend up here. Yeah, and you're welcome here at our fire anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Righto,
Thank
mate.
you. I'm with Alison McLaughlin from 4 Wheel Drive Victoria and also from the local Mansfield Alpine 4 Wheel Drive Club, who's had a lot to do with this hut, Craig's hut.
We have, Ron. This is version 3 pretty much that we're standing under.
Okay.
Because version 1 was that was the movie set back in the 80s for The Man from Snowy River, and it was pretty much a shell with guy ropes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That basic.
That basic, yeah.
Right.
So.
And then hut number 2 got burnt down?
No, hut number 2 sort of sprang to life after the stage set fell into disrepair.
Okay.
The back walls with corrugated iron on them and things, and it all sort of went into disrepair.
Yeah.
And the Mansfield Club sort of thought something that they could do to put themselves on the map.
Yeah.
Decided that they could rebuild.
So they built the hut, it became a tourist attraction then, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. Even while they were building it, which was beginning in '93, you'd still get people coming up and tourists looking at the hut.
Okay.
And so the Mansfield Club had on board stubby holders and T-shirts and things. So they actually sold souvenirs to people, and that was part of their fundraising.
Okay. Because the iconic thing about this hut, it was never a mountain cattleman hut or anything like that. It was just made for the movie.
That's it. No mountain cattleman in his right mind would build a hut here, probably.
That's very true. That's very true. But it has become the symbol of the mountain cattleman.
I think it
and the
has.
huts.
Yeah. And I think, you talk to the Victorian High Country Huts Association, and those guys sort of believe that this hut, even though it's not an original mountain cattleman's hut, has helped to put all the other huts on the map.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic job they do.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to talk to you a bit about the Four-Wheel Drive Association. I mean, that's the peak body for four-wheel drivers here in Victoria.
Yep.
Can you tell me what you guys do?
So we've got a working relationship with Parks and with Department of Land, Water, Environment Planning.
Yeah.
We're a registered training organisation as well.
Okay.
But our biggest thing is we've probably got about 85 clubs under our wing in the association who are all affiliated with us.
Yep.
And we're all about keeping the tracks open, working with the land managers to keep the tracks open. So it usually starts around mid-October.
Yeah.
We call it track clearing, and it's a great thing to be involved with.
Okay.
Terrific.
I mean, the amount of timber that's fallen across the track and that sort of thing. I mean, we've got held up a couple of times, and we're at the end of the touring season, so there's been an awful lot of track clearing done in the last few months.
Yeah, you sort of find a track clearing weekend. You might not get very far, so everybody that volunteers to come along, like when the Mansfield Club do it, we'll have a party of people, we'll do a full induction, and we usually split up into two groups.
Okay.
So within each group, there's log rollers, there's chainsaws. Everyone using a chainsaw has to have an accredited course underneath them and all the gear, and plenty of us picker-uppers.
Okay.
You know, so sometimes it takes a long time to get a little distance.
Yeah. What's the big fight on at the moment? Is there any big thing that's happening with the association and Parks or with the High Country? Mount Sterling, for instance, is...
Where I wouldn't say it's too big a thing, but it's been a really rewarding thing that Four-Wheel Drive Victoria has been recognised as a stakeholder with the Mount Buller, Mount Sterling Resort Management. Okay. So Mount Sterling in its own right has a stakeholder group, and Four-Wheel Drive Victoria is part of the stakeholder group. It's important for four-wheel drivers to be able to visit the summit of Sterling and do that whole loop and drive that loop. So we've been in consultation with the local Tunnerong people, the horse riders, the snow skiers, all the stakeholders for Sterling, and looks like we retain access. We retain access on a seasonal closure basis. All we have to do is convince people not to drive off the track. Appreciate the summit for what it is. Walk to the tree. Walk to the trig point, but don't drive your cars there. So,
great stuff. Thank you very much.
Well, Ron, it seems like over the last couple of weeks we've seen a hell of a lot of high country huts, but really we've only scratched the surface of them. There's plenty more, isn't there?
Oh yeah. I don't know how many there are, but they're in the hundreds. Yeah.
And they're here for all different reasons, and ironically we're here at Craig's Hut, probably the most recognisable of the huts. It was built for the Man from Snowy River film.
Yeah, it was never a mountain cattleman's hut in the first place, but man, everybody recognises it.
And I guess for that reason it's earned its place in history now. It's part of the high country heritage, and it deserves to be a part of this series.
Yeah, my word, my word. And cracker view, fabulous day, great way to end a trip.
Yeah, it's a great spot to end a trip.